Chapter 11, Cameron Boxer. It was perfect until it wasn't perfect anymore. "What are you going to do, Cam?" asked Pavel. "It's already Wednesday. That PAG meeting is tomorrow after school." "I guess I have to go," I said with resignation. "And do what?" Chuck prompted. I shrugged helplessly. "There is no PAG." Pavel frowned. "I'm not so sure about that anymore. I mean, yeah, there used to be no PAG, but when there are posters all over the school and the middleman is writing about it, and Mr. Fanshaw's all gung-ho, and people like Jordan and Xavier and String think they're members, it means there is a PAG, and you're the president of it." I couldn't wrap my mind around that. I wasn't even sure who to blame. Mr. Fantail, or Daphne, or String, or Jordan, or Xavier. Okay, not Xavier. It was never good for your health to blame Xavier for anything. When the bell rang on meeting day, I marched through the halls like a prisoner on the way to his own execution. Without Pavel and Chuck at my side, I doubt I would have had the courage to put one foot in front of the other. We may have been the awesome threesome, but there was nothing awesome about what we were on our way to do. Pavel and I hung back, but Chuck kept drifting ahead. "What are you so enthused about?" Pavel asked him. He flushed bright red. "I don't know. I've never joined anything before. I'm kind of excited to see what it's all about." "You know what it's all about," I growled. "Nothing." "Yeah, before," he conceded. "But now it looks like it's going to be about something. I'm anxious to find out what." Chuck made more sense when he had a mouthful of gummy worms. The door to the music room was open. Outside stood an easel with another one of Mr. Fanzine's signs. "PAG meeting today. All welcome." That last part was a stab through the heart. All welcome wasn't exactly the message I had in mind. Danger, toxic waste would have been more like it. Inside, it was even worse than I thought it would be. Besides the guidance counselor and Daphne, String, Jordan, Felicia, and Xavier, there were other people too. Kids who must have seen the posters and thought that all welcome meant they could go. Some people would join anything just so they could add it to their resume. And my eyes must have bulged in horror. On the back row of risers sat Melody with her friend Katrina, both of them grinning at me. No way was this a show of sisterly support. Melody was here to drink in my misery and enjoy every minute of it. She knew. You bet she knew. Pavel and Chuck took seats in the far corner of the room, and I tried to make myself small between the two of them. No such luck. Mr. Fanblade hauled me up to the front of the room, his face glowing with purpose. "Our president has arrived," he announced enthusiastically. "Let's get started. Take it away, Cameron." So there I was standing in front of everybody, with less than nothing to say and my sister in the back taking notes. If I could do with myself what Pavel could do with websites where he redirected people to other countries, I would have been in Iceland in a heartbeat. The guidance counselor got sick of my dead silence and announced, "Why don't you tell us a little about what we have to look forward to in the Positive Action Group?" "Well, it's about helping, mostly," I began, and then trailed off. "And and assisting," I went on. I knew how stupid I sounded, but I was really cornered. "Aiding, you know, pitching in." My desperate gaze fell on my sister. No way was she going to bail me out. She hadn't had this much fun since watching me take the heat for the Zitty. Pavel and Chuck had nothing to offer either. Pavel regarded me in sympathy, and Chuck seemed honestly interested in what I was going to say, which was crazy since he knew better than anyone that I had diddly squat. The rest of the kids were starting to get a little restless because, let's face it, there wasn't too much information coming at them. All except String, who was leafing through a football playbook, and Xavier, who was asleep. Doing our fair share, making Sycamore a better place." At last my eyes fell on Daphne. She was leaning so far forward in her seat that she looked like she was about to tumble down the risers and land on her head. But seeing her there gave me my first flash of inspiration, a way to change the subject from the fact that I was laying a total egg at my own meeting. "And most important of all," I blurted, "we've got to find a way to save that poor beaver out there." Yes! Daphne sprang to her feet. We've got to create a home for Elvis. We're the Positive Action Group, and this is the most positive thing we could possibly do. She pounded the music stand in front of her, creating a gonging sound that woke up Xavier. He looked around, annoyed, and closed his eyes again. Elvis? Came a few confused voices. At least I wasn't the only person who'd never heard of him. Daphne went into her emotional speech about the beaver who had been uprooted by the new mall and abandoned by his colony, and blah, blah, blah. I was more than happy to let her have the spotlight, so I sat back down between Pavel and Chuck. I wasn't a big Daphne fan, but when she had the floor, she was good for at least 20 minutes. A few of the kids thought this was a great idea. Others weren't so sure. Shouldn't the mission of the PAG be helping people, not animals? This went back and forth a couple of times, with Daphne's voice becoming louder and more shrill. Then my darling sister put in her 2 cents. Why are we arguing over this? We've got the founder of the PAG right here. What do you think, Cam? What did I think? I wanted to be an only child, that's what I thought. Aloud, I said, that gives us something to chew over until our next meeting. Next meeting? Daphne wouldn't hear of it. We're not done with this meeting. Yeah, Cam, Chuck said earnestly. We need to know now. I stared at him in dismay. Mr. Fan Fiction bailed me out. These are all really good questions, but as your faculty advisor, I've already set up the PAG's first project. The Senior Citizens Garden Project on 7th Street is due for its fall cleanup. I volunteered us to help. This announcement sucked all the energy out of the argument. The murmur that passed through the group was a little disappointed. But after all, who could complain about helping old people? Even Daphne, whose face was bright pink, bit her tongue and sat back down. One thing was definite. The way the guidance counselor had told it to us, it sure sounded like a done deal. String looked up from his playbook. Did I miss something? We're going to be pulling weeds, Pavel supplied. Xavier shifted to his left side and began to snore. I understand people, the guidance counselor was smiling. When you hear positive action, you picture yourself saving the world. So gardening is kind of a letdown. But remember, every journey begins with the first step. This is real hands-on work, helping elderly people who might not be able to do it on their own. It's an excellent project to start with. Right, Cameron? Sure. At that point, I would have said anything so long as nobody expected me to talk anymore. Felicia rose, dragging Jordan with her. The Tolfelson for President campaign is behind this 100%. She reached around with her phone and snapped a selfie of the two of them to capture the moment. One by one, the members of the Positive Action Group signed on to Cleanup Day at the Senior Citizens Garden Project. Even Xavier opened his eyes long enough to nod. Mark your calendars, Mr. Faneuil Hall instructed the dispersing crowd. Saturday, 10 a.m. Don't be late. And keep selling those raffle tickets. Or, in the case of most of you, start selling them. Saturday, 10 a.m. It was a slap in the face. That was prime gaming time, especially if you were in training for Rule the World. But nobody cared about that. That was a pretty good meeting, Chuck commented, as we exited the school, and you were worried. It said a lot for our friendship that I didn't even hit him.